This is episode 9 of the Zilliqa Observer. I'm Chase Raz. We're about to hit double digits in episode numbers and doing so twice as fast as originally planned. What does that mean? Well, it means that Zilliqa has a thriving ecosystem, and I knew that coming in, but I couldn't have imagined or expected just how thriving it was and still is. It could take an entire team monitoring developments full time, and I'd still feel like we're missing things over here at TZO. Still, I've never had so much demand for a particular guest than for today's guest, Adam Martin, the founder of Carbon Labs. Many of you have been waiting to get to know Adam, and we all know the past few months have been really exciting with people starting to show their faces, revealing their names, and for a project like Carbon, this does wonders. Sure, this is the crypto space and I get it. Not everything needs to be public, but Adam just might have something to say about that and how Carbon will assist with identity management, trust, proof, notarizing, governance, and more. By popular demand and with no further ado, here's the interview with Adam Martin, founder of Carbon Labs. Hi everybody, with me today is Adam from Carbon. And Adam, I have to tell you that there has never, I know we're only, X number of episodes in now, we're just starting to hit double digits soon, but still, I've run a podcast before, running this podcast and YouTube channel. I don't think I've ever had so many people reach out and say, this is the person I want you to interview next. So you are here first of all, I love having you to the show. Thank you for being here, but also popular demand. You're a popular man.
That's good to hear.
Catch you off guard right as we start there. Let's see how he's going to respond to this one. So Adam, it is a pleasure to get to talk to you, but I have to say I don't know a lot about you. Normally I do these deep dives into folks, and I haven't really been able to do that much. If you would, please, fill in the blanks. Let me know who you are.
Yeah, sure. So I guess my background has been typically for the last 15 to 20 years as IT. I worked out of London as a e-commerce consultant with a technical architect slant. We worked with Magento open source platform, doing international rollouts for the likes of Nestle, McLaren, Formula One, some other players like that. My focus has always been on open source technologies and what they can potentially do for the world rather than closed technologies, and hence, why the blockchain is a particular passion of mine. I guess going beyond that, those sort of contractor jobs, I also have worked with Apple. We started a business called Musicadium, which was the first aggregator to be able to get your music onto iTunes in the Southern Hemisphere. We were the second ever to create that. So we're always looking for those sort of ways to enable different people to get onto these platforms. So I guess a serial entrepreneur. I'm in my mid-40s now, and the focus now is definitely on blockchain. I guess people know that I've got a hotel. That's my own real life business. We've got to earn an income somewhere, and that's where I'm at the moment with that.
Is being in the hotel business, is it difficult? Because I know someone who had purchased a hotel once, and about a year later, 2 years later, I asked him how it's going, and he said, I'm switching over, and he was buying something else. I asked him why. He said, I just can't stand the deaths that happen at a hotel. Is that, just an area where he was, or is that, or do weird things happen at hotels frequently?
So I wouldn't know. We certainly haven't had that sort of issue. Our hotel is quite a small boutique hotel. It's a historic hotel in New Zealand, reasonably well known in the area we're in. For me, moving into the hotel business, actually, when I left London, which is about 8 years ago, I bought a smaller boutique lodge, and so it was kind of a way to free up my get myself out of IT and be able to focus purely on projects rather than be working IT all day and then trying to run these projects at nighttime. It just became a brain drain. So with our hotel in particular, like I said, it's a boutique hotel. We're talking about 7 different accommodation units, but the main focus is on a historic bar, restaurant, things like that. So not so bad. But the last
not
year,
so bad. Not a bunch of people. Well, I'm sure there's a difference, right? Are you originally from London?
No, I'm a Kiwi, born and bred, but I ended up going into London. Like I said, my focus was on Magento open source. I got into that quite early on, so there wasn't so many players in the field, and
Yeah.
I was actually taking some time out, sitting in Thailand for 6 months, deciding what I was going to do with life, and had a job offer in London and several in Australia, and decided the opportunity was go to London. My brother was there at the time, so I went there under contract for 3 months and was still working for the same company 5 years later.
Wow, that's really that's really cool. Does that strain the family dynamic?
Not now. No, we're good now. So I just recently got married to my partner. So she's Austrian.
Congratulations on that, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Sorry I didn't say
So
that
partner's
earlier.
from Austria, and we had a really small wedding here. Unfortunately, none of her friends and family could come due to the border restrictions going on at the moment. So we're looking forward to getting back into Europe at some point to catch up with them. But no, things are going really well here. Just one thing on the hotel, the focus is definitely now to try to remove myself out of that space once the renovations are done, and we're talking a week or two now at the end of a 9-month project. So really looking forward to free myself away from that and concentrating on carbon.
Not 9 months of construction and renovation. No thanks. You had said earlier that you had been anonymous to some degree, and we had talked about this a little bit. I don't want to just move on from that point, because even though you and I talked about it before recording, because this is one of the questions that a lot of people had when they would, send me messages and they'd say, here's what I want to know from Adam. Why the particular timing for not being anonymous anymore? What changed in your life? Any type of situation, or was it just the right place, right time? And in fairness, I also want to point out, because in the Zilliqa space, it's not uncommon. Virtually nobody but the Zilliqa development team were known prior to really maybe 6 months, a year ago, something like that. So what was the factor for you? Was it that the ecosystem had hit a certain size? Was it a personal change? What led you to say, I'm a serial entrepreneur, I'm here, this is what I'm working on?
So I think the key thing is exactly like you just pointed out, that we're working now. My focus is on Carbon Labs more. Predominantly in a few weeks' time, I hope to be almost 100% devoted to Carbon Labs, getting rid of the focus on that. I think then it's important that it's seen as it's a real company that we're developing here, and like any other company, you need to know who's at the helm. The workhorse behind can be a bit more hidden, but it's really important that we're aware of those people that are at the helm. It does bring up an interesting point. I think it's still in a space that there's a definite need for anonymity, but that anonymity needs to be backed up by trust, and that's a little bit some of our projects are around that, where you don't have to necessarily know who I am, but you can trust who I am through relationships with other people. Maybe we go into that a bit more later, but carbon proofs and stuff that we're developing is around that there's a way that someone else can put their hand up and say, hey, look, I know the developer behind Carbon Labs, and as long as you trust me, then you can trust, you can trust that I know that. But I think at this point we're not there. So, I have to put my face and my name out there so people can see who I am and what my background is.
Do you think we'll be there soon, or is blockchain and crypto, are we mainstreaming to any degree yet, or what's your take on that?
I think the ideas are getting mainstreamed. I think the way we're getting there is maybe not as efficient as we may think. I think we're maybe far too libertarian, maybe too idealistic in some of our approaches, and we have to find that balance in between. There's these extreme examples where we're not touching banks and everything can be decentralized, and then people we've got this onboarding process, and that onboarding is across the range. I think we're onboarding with fear, we're onboarding with ideas, and I think it's just going to naturally happen. I think the implementation of blockchain is probably going to be hidden somewhat from most people, in the way that we use the internet without necessarily knowing that we're using the internet. There's some grand ideas, and grand ideas push things forward, but yeah, I think we're working going the right way. But
well, thank you for that, because I think for what it's worth, I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's something that I would like with this show to help token holders understand. It's one of our key points here, with adding faces to things like you're not anonymous. One of our other key points is really that not everything here is for the token holders, that we're investing in something that a lot of times people aren't going to know they're utilizing. And so that's why we're investing in the utility token, that not everything has to be something for us as token holders. It's in holding these tokens, what are we helping facilitate in the larger world? So I thank you for expressing that viewpoint. It's very much in line with my personal objectives for the show as well. So great to have some synergy with you there.
Good.
Walk me through what Carbon is.
I'd say Carbon is a company where we're focused on giving people back control of their data and just the way they generally work in their digital lives. I think we give up far too much without realizing we're giving up that control. And I think it's really, really important that we have some tools around that management things, and those tools can be managing the data or even just expressing the information back to you so that you're more aware of what's happening around you. I think we too quickly check boxes and say yes to things that we're not even aware of what that is. We're blinded by jargon, we're blinded by things that we're just told that it's just convenient, we have to do that. So our focus is really around that. In that space is assisting people to be in control of their digital lives. Yes.
So what are some of the, I know you have it fairly well laid out on the website, but for folks who may not have a proper introduction to Carbon before, you have products like Carbon Avatar, Carbon Proofs, there's governance. What am I missing? What are some of the key projects that you're working on, and what's sort of the pecking order of, pecking order isn't what I'm at, but what is sort of the prioritization of these, of which you think needs to come to market first and then go from there?
Yeah, sure. So everyone's, I guess, pretty excited about Avatar. Avatars would be our key project, but it's important that we get our foundational products correct first, and that's the Carbon Proofs, the Graphite, which is our governance model, and the Treasury. The Treasury based on the UTO model, which I developed quite a while ago. When I say developed, I've developed as an idea. Mm-hmm. So the idea of the Treasury is it's sort of I guess I use the word DAO loosely, but it's really about it's a financial transaction DAO. I guess it's given a marketplace within its own contract for buying and selling a base token without any influence on bonded curves or set limits on there's only 1 million of these tokens and hence the price goes up. The idea of the Treasury is that if you're interested in the product, you'll be able to invest at any time. You're not going to miss out because you're 6 months down the track and the price is pumped 1,000 times and you're hoping to get in. So these foundational products I think are really important because it's going to form the basis of how we run our business. So like I said, the Treasury governance.
So walk me through that a little bit more. The Treasury, I don't quite understand. What are some of the mechanisms that you envision in the model that you've created that it sort of takes some of that time pressure off and takes some of that burden off of the investor of being or facing time scarcity?
Yep. So the Treasury itself, for the products that we are creating, like Avatar, etc., there will be some payments of required for some of those features that we do. Those payments will be generated via the Treasury. The Treasury will essentially issue an invoice. The invoice will get paid. I mean, I say an invoice, it's going to be paid at the click of a button, but it gets paid and it goes back to the contract. The contract then holds those, I guess, in its vault is the best way to kind of think about it. Mm-hmm. As a token holder, you have an ownership over a portion of those tokens, or the portion of the funds, I should say. So as we're bringing in more invoices, then the whole value of the contract is increasing, and that value is dispersed amongst the entire token holder. So we start with a set value at the start. We might say it's, if we're talking in the real world, 1 share is worth 10 cents. But if we then post a profit of $1 million a year and there's 100 shares, then you do the maths, you can figure out what it's worth. So the key here is it's a real-time, true valuation based on what's held in the business, and the business being the Treasury, I guess, is the one thing.
It's making me think because one, it seems that you put a lot of value on the fact that tokenization is good for measuring utility. It very much seems that that's a utilitarian approach, but also what I'm interested in is this is like you said, a very true DAO approach, in the sense that there is no, you see, here in the United States, we have this problem where if we operate it as even the DAO as a business, mm-hmm. we can't then take the revenues and the profits and distribute it among token holders. So in a way, this seems as if it's creating a model where, not to address any particular market, but a model to where the functioning of a blockchain business modifies and adjusts the valuation of the token itself.
Yeah, it does in a way. And the interesting dynamic of this is that the token value can never go backwards, which is, so it gives some confidence, I guess, if you're going to invest. And I find it hard to say the word invest because I think that gets us into interesting territory as well.
Right.
I think I like to think that people in acquiring tokens with the belief that they're supporting the company and what they're doing. The reason I say that the token value can never go backwards is we initially set the token price. So like I said, it might be one token for 10 ZIL, or go the other way, 1 to 1 ZIL. But as we issue invoices, it's outside the buying and selling of those tokens, then the value's naturally gone up. So it can only ever go up in value. So it does give some confidence there that if you're going to go in because you believe in the project, then that you're not going to lose your money. I mean, outside of the impermanent loss idea, you won't lose. You'll be able to get the equivalent ZIL back, and if not, a little bit more. At any point in time, it's also completely liquid because you can get it straight back out of the contract. It's not a case that we're withdrawing it or you have to wait till it goes. It's locked into the contract, less a fee that we take for ourselves. The way the fee works as well, though, is that we're actually issuing the token as well. So we have to burn the token back to release any of the ZIL in there. So that way it's pretty clear as to what we're doing. So that's how we make our money, I guess, and provide for our developers, etc. going forward.
That is one I would absolutely love to deep dive one day, because from your point of view, having created the model and implementing it and executing it, I will say, I think it's, to the average person, I think that is much more complex, right? Than you're giving it credit for. And that comes with exposure to the project and knowing it. That's one I'd absolutely love to deep dive into more, because I can pick up on portions of that in real time, but I think you've done a great job within your community, the community that follows Carbon, of explaining it to a core group of people who can then sort of evangelize on behalf of the larger community that Carbon is building. To turn the focus very brief, because otherwise I'll sit and deep dive that one all day. With Avatar, give us a brief overview of what Avatar is for the folks who haven't, right? They're the folks who are looking at ZilSwap, ZilStream, ZilGraph and going, oh, what is this whole Avatar thing I keep hearing about with these Carbon people?
Yeah, sure. So Avatar in itself is a pretty simple concept. It's a representation, or an English representation of your address. So we're really just giving you a name at this stage, and it's associated with a particular address. Similar to Unstoppable Domains, similar to other projects around that. The key here that we're doing is we're allowing you to have multiple avatars. In life we have different personas, and we're not just one person. Chase Raz is the person interviewing me now. He could well be the soccer coach or football coach on any other day. Those different personas, we like to say, are different avatars. When you're around, there's certain things you do under one type, and there's certain things you'll do under a different type of persona. So Avatar itself is just a way of separating out of those and storing the data that you have associated with those personas. Going forward, when you go and interact with different digital outlets, being their websites or mobile apps, etc., you'll be able to choose which avatar you're actually interacting with, and that will come with a subset of data that you may wish to expose or choose not to expose. So, if I'm going to go shopping online, and I might have my avatar that's all around sports, or myself, or going forward, if I have a family, then I could be shopping for my kids, and then I'm bringing up my dad avatar because I'm looking for certain things. If I'm shopping for my wife, I might bring up my wife avatar. I'm suddenly a female looking for certain things. The key here is it's you're in control of the data that you want to expose. The websites have to request it, and then you can allow them to have access to that data. But the first thing is exactly what they're asking for. They're not doing this cross cookie management where they're tracing you around all the websites and understanding what you're doing. But in saying that, it allows you to actually get a much better experience too. Because if you open up that, I've got a wee dog, and so when I go to a pet store, I'm interested in dog products. I don't really particularly want to see cat products and stuff. So it allows you to actually manipulate the web to give you a better experience too, which at the end of the day is better for even the providers of those digital places that you're interacting with. So, but the base thing to go back is really about giving you control of the data and to be aware of what that data flowing around is.
Now, does the site owner have to opt into this and enable it, or does this, to some in partial or in full, work with existing technologies as a part of the existing web stack?
Yep. So, I mean, we're still going through the detail of what the best ways of doing that is. Ultimately, there will be some data that you will just enable as a general. When I'm browsing around the internet, I don't mind that people know X, Y, Z about me. So in that case, that would be just a simple JavaScript request that they could just enable it, put into their website. So no different to Google Analytics and things like that. By having that in there, that would just be free data that's available all the time for them. Going forward, if they wanted other types of data, they can actually build up, I guess, a data subset that they want to gather around people, so they can have their own data enabled. So it pops up the website and it says, hey, look, pets.com is asking this particular information. That would be unique to pets.com. So you could make that available to them. In that case, yeah, there's definitely some extra things they have to install to enable that on their site. But in general, it will work with existing technologies.
And so what about proofs? Walk me through carbon proofs.
So carbon proofs is a cryptographic proof of existence. In layman's terms, it's a way to prove that you were in control of a digital asset at a particular time and be able to, in the future, prove that that was the case. Initially, we're working with self-notarizing. So you create the proof yourself by providing a password and uploading it. That encrypts the file, stores it on IPFS. The reason for IPFS is we run into a big problem on the internet where things typically disappear after 100 days if you don't actually interact with them. So we pin them on IPFS. So the idea being it's there forever as far as things go. And we store the cryptographic hash on Zilliqa blockchain. So at some point in the future, you can prove, like I said, you had that digital asset by decrypting it, or providing people the ability to decrypt. Where that's password based, we're actually looking at self encryption, where the file itself encrypts itself. So that way you can pass on the file to someone else and say, look, you can create the same encryption and prove that it's yours. We're also looking at having other notarizers, so lawyers, trusted people in the community and stuff. So going right back to what I was saying before, I can be an anonymous, but I can be trusted by someone. So Chase Raz is a social influencer in the Zilliqa thing. He could be a notarizer saying, look, I know this person, I know Adam, I know the lead, and here's how I'll prove it. He's provided me the passport, I've encrypted that. You don't need to decrypt it, you just need to trust that I've done it. So having notarizers going forward is really important.
And I know I've channeled to you in the past that that's one of the particular projects. I think that's the one I'm the most interested in. And you've said that it's funny because most people are interested in the Avatar project. Yeah. But carbon proofs, right? That's one of the initial promises that was sold to me in terms of the blockchain when I first, really jumped in and started my first mining rig and those types of things. And it amazes me to this day that there's still not more of that so much of blockchain is still focused on cryptocurrencies and the token. It's become a secondary stock market, in my opinion, rather than necessarily fulfilling its promise with what you just described. The idea that, all right, you want to make sure this document is original, go ahead and run it through and get the hash, because you can't create that hash without this particular document, or right, whatever the mechanisms are that you're using to implement such a thing. I know you said you're using passwords right now. Yeah. Why do you think that hasn't taken off more? Is this something that needs heavy government and business to business adoption that individuals just don't really care about? Or what are your thoughts surrounding this promise of, I can prove that I have something without exposing it? Why are we not further along on that general idea?
Yeah, I think you've hit it on the head that to say that people don't care about it. I think people care about it, but don't know there's solutions out there or solutions being developed out there. We put too much trust in centralized systems that control those sort of mechanisms for us. You know, I always use the example with carbon proofs with Haiti, with the earthquake. You know, obviously being in New Zealand, we're susceptible to earthquakes as well, so it's a good example for me. But that, you know, a lot of critical documents were lost, and you know, people then care about those documents and how do we keep it safe, and then they try to keep their own versions into the safe, and you know, the person that owns the safe is no longer available and things like that. So you know, so it's really, I think people do care about it, but haven't had to think about it in a way, and the onboarding of that again is a really difficult process. You know, it needs to be done. You know, like I said, we're gonna work with external notarizers. I think the key is to get those external notarizers to do that. You know, when I go to the lawyer and I sign a property deal, he should just instantly notarize that property deal, put the title up onto the blockchain. You know, here in New Zealand, it's all digital titles anyhow, but now we're trusting that our government knows what they're doing as far as storing that in a good way. And as we know, every government is a good target for some nefarious people. So, you know, we've
internally and externally, right? You have threats on all sides. With Graphite, the Graphite is the governance portal or the governance idea.
Yeah, so it's governance.
And so that model, if I'm understanding correctly, is significantly different than some that have been seen because it uses a quadratic voting mechanism.
Yeah, correct. So we're not particular fans of snapshots. It's, you know, which seems to be the standard governance model now. You know, I can understand where snapshots come from, and you know, there was a problem with votes and how you record those votes and things like that. And snapshots, I think, worked to a point, but you know, we only saw a big problem on Pancake Swap where we had, you know, pretty much all the community voted one way, and then one whale come in and managed to vote another way, and he got what he wanted, unfortunately. And in the real world, I can't see that happening. That you can walk up to do a vote and they ask to see your bank account and then give you value because you've got so much more in your bank account. So,
a major inherent problem in that model that we're seeing exhibited in various places.
Yeah. So Graphite itself is a quadratic model, which means every vote comes to the power of itself in cost. So, you know, if you want to vote once as a yes, then it costs you 1. If you want to vote twice, have a vote power of 2, then it's going to come at a cost of 4 tokens. So what we're looking at doing is using the CARB token as its own governance token. So we're not creating a new governance token at all. You go into doing a vote. Typically, most people just vote with one CARB to say this is how I feel, yes or no, the other way. If someone's particularly passionate one way or the other, then they have to pay a cost for that. And again, the example, if there's 99 people that vote one way and a particular person wants another way, it's going to cost him 10,000 CARB to vote against the community. At the end of the vote, he would win as far as, you know, he would have influenced the vote to his direction, but those 10,000 CARB will get distributed amongst all other voters. So now the community has been awarded 99 CARB or thereabouts each. If they really are passionately against what the person voted for, then they can go ahead and, you know, go again, and that would actually put it as such that person wouldn't be able to override the community. So we find it as a much fairer way where we ultimately get to what the community wants, even if it takes several rounds to get there. But I just think it's fairer all around. It's not allowing, just because someone's wealthier, it doesn't allow them to have massive influence without paying for that influence.
Yeah, that's particularly interesting to me, because one of the things I think that could hit there in terms of critique is, well, it eventually silences the voice of the one lone person, but isn't that kind of the point, right? In the sense that we are so used to the alternative. We're so used to the smaller consortium or the smaller number of voices eventually wearing out and diverting so many resources to the fact that we get numb to the votes and we skip them. And I take a look at some of the votes that are on the governance portal that have had to be redone, and the vote participation drops from instance to instance. And so, hopefully I haven't come across as too critical of that, but the governance is deeply flawed in the crypto space, not just Zilliqa, everywhere for the most part. And you create a model where, sure, if you really want to be that thorn in the side that's going to actively fight a community and try to control it in a dictatorial way. You can succeed once or twice, but you're essentially seeding the community with the tool to eventually dispose you anyway. And I think there is a deep intellect in that a lot of people can get behind. And what I want to point out is, when we were recently working together, because there was another company, another attempted DAO, that No Names issued a fairly generic white paper, and I pointed out, but there are a couple of really genius things in here. But the reality is, after you and I spoke, you let me know that that was pretty much just a watered down version of your graphite plan over in Carbon. And after looking at the two of them, I agree with you 100%. They had issued a sort of watered down version of that. Whether they directly lifted it from you or whether it was somewhere else, I can't commend that governance model enough. However, what are some of the functional, practical usability? Like, is there a path to get Zilliqa or Ethereum or any chain? I'm just pick a random chain. Is there any path from this point to getting somebody to adopt that, or are you building it for different purposes to where that's not necessary, to where it's new organizations, new things that are coming up that want that type of more fair governance?
Yep. So for us, we're building it for ourselves in the first place. I think going forward, it is going to be a good checkpoint on how the governance that within a company is controlled, or how the structure is controlled. So we think it's a good checkpoint that we can show this is what we're going to do. We've talked to several other guys in the arena, and they really like the model, and they're probably going to adopt it as well. We're actually looking at when we do launch, as similar to snapshots where you can have multiple companies on the one platform. We're actually looking at opening up Graphite to be a platform where other businesses can just adopt that system as well, so they don't have to start from scratch. So I guess we'd like to see it as a default, as the way to do governance models going forward. In my tweet back in September, I think I first talked about this particular model, and even mentioned that I would have loved to see GZIL being applied that way. So whether Zilliqa decides it's a good idea and goes with that, that's really down to the community. I think if we can create a good model, and that's what everyone wants, I think pressure will come onto larger, more influential teams of people to put that model in place. For us, we build the tools that we think are good for us, and if people want to use it going forward, great.
I know they're all bright people over there, and I know that they've all been, they're familiar with quadratic voting. I've seen doxing myself. I've seen screenshots where I know they've talked about it. Hope that one doesn't get me on their radar. But I will say that I think that more of that needs to be out there, needs to be happening. So you're right on the pulse. You may be early. You may be hopefully generating some of the pulse in our space of getting an appetite for such a thing. Which of these, and I believe I know the answer to this, but I want to be clear, which of these products and projects is Carbon releasing first? Because I know you have a couple of demos in the proof space, and Avatar is workable through the IDE currently. What are we going to see first that's going to get those tokens going into that treasury to power that for Carbon token holders?
Yep. So we think it's going to be the Avatar model. Proofs it's actually going to be a bit of a fight, I guess, between Proofs and Avatar, to be honest. The Avatar name reservation is going to be is out there. That's working purely on Zil at the moment. We have actually written, the ability to do that is on Carb, but it's really is the Avatar model that will come directly into the Treasury. Avatar we released a little bit prematurely, got it working. We found some bugs where we stamped out those bugs and things like that. But to go back, that model, Avatar is the focus for sure. That's where we've got to get to. Everything else is foundational work to do that. What I would say is Proofs and Avatar have a really close relationship. There's Avatar where we're talking about personas. There's also your in real life provable. It's you can't change it. You're born on this date. This is your passport. This is your driver's license. Those are going to be stored as proofs and attached to your Avatar model. So there are some abilities around that. So that's why I said it's a kind of a proofs versus Avatar thing. Some of those things have to drop pretty closely together.
Yeah. So one of the things I've observed about the Zilliqa space is it's very, there's dichotomous motivation in place. One is everybody wants everything right now, and two, everybody's very happy to invest in speculation, as we learned with ZPN and with the other project we were talking about earlier that, you know, hopefully they were legit, but they didn't pan out as soon as they were given any pressure to answer any questions. When it comes to Carbon, where are you at with that in the sense of what do you see as your time frame? What do you see as the development time frame? And I'm asking that not in the go ahead and give us the product, hurry up question. It's more because, as you've described this, these are all very large, visionary type of ideas.
Yeah.
The time to execution on those, there has to be, I would imagine, a rather prolonged time frame. Would that assessment be correct? And if so, what? Let me just see if that's correct first.
Yep. So I would definitely say, as you say, they're large projects. We probably are like molasses versus water as far as how quickly we get things out. But we do that because we actually try to do things properly. You know, we open up. Yeah, I don't know if you've seen our test cases and stuff like this. So most things we do come with the tests and stuff. We don't just drop quickly. We do full runs of tests. We make sure things are going well. You know, we could release some of these things much quicker, but at the end of the day, it's immutable contracts that that will cause all sorts of headaches if we don't get right forward. Right. So while if there is, like you say, on the blockchain, everyone expects everything to happen really quickly. Write the white paper, give us the product 2 days later. And it's I'm not a fan of white papers in general. I'm a fan of living documents and being able to change as you find particular issues and stuff like that. So I've hinted at recently that our white paper, which was not really a white paper for Avatar, was written 3 years ago. It needs to be rewritten, but we're going to put that into a living document, a living project. But like I said, for us, it's to give a date on when we're going to start hitting these things is really hard. What we do is we define the test, we define the features, and then we'll start working through those as those features pass the test and they're ready for general consumption. We release them. The Avatar name reservation is a first port of that. It's pretty simple to reserve your name or reserve a name. We also know that because people are going to jump on this like squatting for domains, we're going to have a secondary market to be able to sell those names. So we know that a bunch of people are going to jump on them. We need to have an ability for I guess brand owners to be able to get those back if need be in a way. So there's things that we could. Sorry, there are things that we need to think about more than just how does it work and stuff. We're thinking from a business standpoint as well.
Once that is in play, what would you say the timeline would be? What type of sprints would we be looking at afterwards for some of the core functionality of Avatar, whether it's the website approach, we talked about before, of being able to offer certain pieces of data, or whether it's, a more, I don't mean to diminish it in any way, but a more rudimentary approach, such as connecting to wallets.
Yep. So initially, our first thing once we've got Avatar out there will be a Chrome browser plugin, and we're going to be using Avatar will be required to be involved in Graphite. The reason being, Graphite being a governance model that pays you to vote. It's been very easy to create too many wallets just to put a vote in to try to score some of the potential funds that are distributed. So again, we're building the products that we'll use initially. So the browser plugin is a pretty obvious one, and then going forward, mobile apps and all those sorts of things, that becomes much more usable for multiple places. But for what we need for ourselves is rudimentary and it's simple. And again, as companies come to us or business or projects come to us, then we can look at which direction we need to expand out those tools and what are the best tools to do that.
I want to make sure that I'm making fair assumptions here. A few times you've mentioned that, right, we're building it for ourselves, or this is what we're working on, or we're going to deploy it first. I want to see how much of that is because it's insular for Carbon, as opposed to and here's what I really think. Here's what I think I'm picking up on. I do get the sense that all of this is being built for deployment out into the world for other organizations, for businesses, for communities, et cetera, to be able to pick this up and utilize it, but that the development is internal and isolated there to use yourself as the proverbial guinea pig. Is that correct, or am I misreading?
No, I think you're pretty much on the button. I think if we can develop for ourselves and make it work for ourselves, and we've got a model that we can confidently talk to others about and how it works, because there's one thing to build for others. I think it's important to build for yourself first and make it work. And like I say, be the guinea pig, because you don't want others to be testing that product for you and lose that trust going forward. It's really important that
Right.
we prove the model first.
Well,
we take
I guess,
it.
yeah, because I wonder if you have a governance portal, if you have proofs, things like that, like what benefit would the avatar be if it's only within the Carbon ecosystem, if you will? Are these products that function internally in some way with utility, with use cases, or because it, from my point of view, it looks like they're very marketable products that it's like Microsoft isn't going to build an operating system unless somebody's going to buy an operating system. They seem to be that type of product, but I've never seen that directly stated. So I want to make sure I'm not filling in the blanks incorrectly.
Yep, no, appreciate it. Going back right at the start of the conversation, I said that Carbon Labs is a product or a business around giving people control over their data and things like that. So that's still the end goal. Like I said, we're not rushing to get out into the wider community until we can prove the products work within our own community. We've got, I think the governance model will be in place soon. We've got the staking, the first staking for ZRC2 tokens around. So we're building these products, foundational products for ourselves to prove that what we do works. We're looking at opening up the ZRC2 staking out to a broader community as well shortly, once we prove it works well. There's a few little things we think we need to tweak around that, but all of our products need to go out there into the wider community. But we're definitely interested in testing them within our own ecosystem first before we do a big grand, this is what we're doing, and potentially fall off the cliff.
That actually helps amazingly, because it helps me reframe it in a different way. And again, one of the things I really caution is, when I talk to a developer or a business person, we're in meetings with ourselves all day, and then we're in meeting with the people we're working with and our token holders, and we're very much in these insular communities. And what happens is it becomes really hard to smell. It's almost like when you're in your car. If you've ever eaten in your car, you don't smell it, but the next person to get in your car goes, what did you just eat in here, right? So it's that idea of everything sounds so perfectly clear, but it's not that those of us on the outside of Carbon are absolute idiots. It's we do actually have a quite a barrier to entry to understanding what's going on, because there's been that development work. There's been an entire lexicon laid out. And so hopefully, I know you just helped me tremendously with understanding what some of the priorities are, what the objectives are, how, and some of the soft language, admittedly, that you're using as well. Well, we're building it for ourselves, but that hinges around the data privacy portion. And I could potentially just be daft, but I had been missing that prior, and I will admit that. When it comes to building these, and I don't do gotchas, you and I talked about this before, I was going to ask this question. It was something that folks were channeling between us on Telegram, was about the development timeline for Carbon, and the fact that it seems that there was a previous stall several months ago that tends to align with the hotel renovation you were talking about. Could you address some of the timeline of the project in the past for people who may be concerned about the direction or the flow or the timeline? Because a number of people did reach out and say, hey, it looks like this project had stalled in the past. What is the story there? And I wasn't part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, sure. So I guess it's good to give some context that the ideas that we're developing here have been actually around for about 3 or 4 years, if not slightly longer. I was developing on Ethereum. We identified some major problems around ICO models and gas wars of people front running and all sorts of things around that. So we started developing some different ideas right back then. We developed one of the first ERC 918 tokens, which is a mineable token as a way of a fairer model for people to get involved or get tokens. That quickly got stamped out as being a fair model by the fact that if you had more money or more gas, you could get involved really quickly and beat everyone to that. So we started looking at those options and how do we make ICOs fairer and stuff. That's where the UTO model come out. That went on hold when the Ethereum gas prices just got beyond ridiculous. It was fine. DeFi's done some wonderful things, but it also caused a lot of problems. It actually goes back. So just diverting slightly, goes back a little bit to why maybe blockchain hasn't been adopted so well. The cost to interact is pretty ridiculous. I used to be able to buy a coffee using Bitcoin in Indonesia. That's impossible now. So
and yet people are still saying, "Hey, let's pump Ethereum to." I see numbers like, "Let's pump it to 20,000," and I think fastest way to kill the project.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So technically, our first store was actually well before we got involved in Silica. It was between Ethereum and Silica, so there was probably a year and a half where the ideas just sat stale until we can find something. Then I come across Silica, and yeah, that was an opportunity to look again. At that point, it was still. I mean, bad term, but it was still a hobby for me. It was on the side. It wasn't my main focus. It wasn't what we're doing. Right. We obviously bought the hotel. We bought that 2.5 years ago. Then COVID hit us, and that's where we thought, well, we've got to do something. We were stuck in our property. We were lucky. Our properties are much bigger than their average property, so we had a lot of freedom on our time. So we thought that was the time to start the renovations. The renovations took longer and led us into close to Christmas. Christmas, summer being a pretty critical time of year for us, especially not having any income for several months, and the hospitality industry is pretty hard hit. So we had to focus on getting that restaurant and bar and everything up and running. We went dark on the development, and for a few weeks there, I went dark on the communication, but tried to at least drop a little bit, saying, "Hey, look, this is what we're doing. We've got the hotel. We're working on this, and we'll be back." We've now, me and my partner, realised the importance of getting me away from the hotel and getting focused on Carbon Labs and really pushing that forward. Since we've come back, which is sort of February in real earnest, we've built the team up. We've got 3 developers on board now. We're actively looking for some business guys to help me. I'm very used to working alongside business analysts, and that's one of my jobs. And for the 5 years I was in London, I was the TA working alongside a BA, and we, as you said, it's when you're on the inside, it's very hard to see or smell the food that you've just eaten. So we actually went out as consultants. So so there was a valid point that we did go dark, and what's to stop that going forward. That's also part of the reason that here I am now. Here's who I am. You can see me on my LinkedIn. You know who I am now. So we've moved on from it was a hobby of ideas of things that we weren't happy about in the ICO world to actually this is a legitimate company. We're in the process of registering. We'll no doubt register out of Singapore. So we'll be a proper legitimate company there. There'll be faces to it, and that's where we are now.
I've heard from the Carbon Telegram channel, I've seen it posted there, that there's some type of involvement between you and Zilhive now. Is that correct?
Yep. So we reached out to Zilhive, I think it might have been round 8, just prior to Christmas anyhow, for the carbon proofs idea that we had, and we're accepted into that project. So Zilhive, being part of that project, is they will help fund as long as we hit certain milestones. We've hit some of those milestones, but haven't actually reached out to Zilhive to collect on those milestones yet. Without saying too much about the model of how Zilhive works, they can obviously provide development funds in different ways. We haven't come in for asking for a huge amount, but this is prior to us going full time and 100%. And it was a case of, if I'm going to remove myself from in real life and move into the crypto space, we need to be able to cover my costs of living, etc. So that's why we went out to Zilhive. Zilhive really like what we're doing around the carbon proofs, and like I said, we're in that program now. We hope to be finishing up carbon proofs and be able to partner along with Zilhive on some of our other projects as well. But I think Zilhive recognition, of each round they do about 10 projects. Some of those get through and some don't. There's been some pretty significant projects that made it through the Zilhive program, like ViewBlock, for example, is one. Zilpay was also involved. So I think it's an important recognition of what the project aim to be. It also gives us access to the core development team, which I think is actually more important than anything else.
Yeah, you're right. Some of those bigger names that people would recognize, Zilpay, Moonlit, Viewbase. But what I'll say to you, what I'll point out here is, and I'm sure you're very well aware of this, so I'm just saying it for effect, quite frankly, is there are a number of teams that, as a part of that interaction with Zillhive, have realized that there are certain things that their project needs to do next, or that have realized that there's something needed in the community that their project sort of touches on in a tangent, but not fully, and have gone back for an additional round and or more. And so things can change. And so with the status of going full time and working on more of these projects over time and bringing developers on, you said you had 2 or 3 developers. I believe you said you were bringing on.
Yeah, we've got 3
Um,
developers at the moment.
do you imagine having a continued, if if it works out, if it fits with their grant writing and various other things, do you imagine having any type of continued relationship with Zillhive, of course pending dynamics on both end
Yeah,
on
we'd
both
love
ends?
to be. I think, first of all, I think the Silica ecosystem is still pretty small. I think most of us guys that are in the space, and certainly the CRC2 token holders, is not many of us. So I think it's really important that we work together as well as we can. And Silica are really good as a team of being available. You just have to look on the Telegram development portal that they're always there. They're always, reaching out as quickly as I can, even under the pressure of what they're working on now with the bridge and the 8 upgrades and stuff like that. They're always there. But I think it's an amazing opportunity to be able to actually be working with core team in the same way. If I'm a Microsoft developer, I'm certainly not able to reach out to the Microsoft core team to get any sort of background. So I think it's a synergy that we want to keep going, definitely.
So the developers you mentioned, are you bringing them on full-time, part-time? Are they community members that are along for the ride? What's sort of the nature of the development structure you have going on now that you're formalizing in the with having a Singapore registered business, with starting to move more full-time into the project?
Mm-hmm. So at the moment, these developers it's on a per contracted basis, I guess. We have some work to be done. I reach out to these guys and they do it, and we pay accordingly. Their focus is the first developer we got on board really liked what we're doing. He's particularly passionate about security and digital stuff around the avatar model, so he really enjoys that. Through him, we got connected up with another person that he knows. Those guys are both out of Singapore. And then we've got another guy at the moment from Germany, and he's an avid developer as well. So these guys at the moment. So there's no formal arrangement that we're contracting them for full time or anything at the moment. But as soon as we get our company up and running, that's certainly something I'm going to be reaching out to these guys and saying, hey, look, how do we get you on board? Interestingly, they're also bringing some projects to us into Carbon that we may adopt, and that will be a way that we can get them on board completely. So that's definitely what we're going to go forward with, and try to get these as an official part of the team. And these guys are on us 100% as much as we can. The Singapore guys are young, so they may get, to be completely transparent, they may get called into service. But that means weekdays they're not as necessarily available as maybe we'd like. So hence why I'm making sure we're building up a bigger team of rather than just 1 or 2. And then we've got a girl who's I only know her through Telegram and not much more, but she's going to be our visual designer in the brand and things like that, which we see as really important as well.
Congratulations to them, and congratulations to you on the growth that's happening right now. And with a hotel during COVID, any type of growth, any type of positive news, I'm sure is very welcome relief to you right now.
Most definitely.
So Adam, I want to respect your time, and I thank you for this interview, but I do want to ask you one more question. It's a question I always end on, which is, what have I forgotten?
I think the key thing here is we're community driven, definitely, 100%. I'd invite anyone that has questions after this video or just heard a little bit about us is to jump onto our community channel and ask. I'm typically there all the time, and when I say all the time, it's about 6 hours where I decide it's time to go to bed, and I'm more than happy to reach out. I feel communication is really important, and if people are asking questions, we haven't communicated properly. Even if that means I need to direct you to the website or things like that, I think it's really important that people jump on and ask us. There's far too much fudding and chilling around other channels and stuff, and I think if you come to the source, talk to us, and we're here to listen to what people want and what they think we should be doing, and then really take that on board. So, we're a company building some products and tools, but those products and tools are for the community. So the community needs to tell us or talk to us about what we're doing. I really think that's the important thing for us.
Like I mentioned, we've been going at about double the speed of episode creation than I had originally planned. I was very happy to have hard titles or those open captions on this video, but honestly, it's 4 hours of my life and work I can never get back. So I am working on bringing them back. I'm looking at ways to continue doing that. That's one of the reasons that the show has been monetized on YouTube and other factors. It's a lot of time, it takes a lot of resources, but we're doing everything we can over here. I say that in a way to sympathize with Adam regarding delays, timelines, and this sense of frustration, even, at least that I have. I have a sense of frustration when I want more to be done, but it just needs time. Something takes more time. But there is something here specific to Carbon Labs and with Adam, and I think it's pretty major. There are a lot of very smart people in crypto. No doubt. Absolutely brilliant people. In many ways, I feel that Adam's even beyond that. I've only had this one actual conversation with him and a number of interactions on Telegram, but there's an advanced form of thought here, of mental cognition around systems and system thinking. I think with support, development, and time, that Adam is a contender to be one of the real breakout entrepreneurs in the Zilliqa space. To utilize this particular blockchain, which is on a slow march towards openness, and in doing so actually shape identity and social interaction, not just within Zilliqa, not just on the blockchain, but potentially in the real world, for our real shared futures together. I want to reserve some judgment here. I want to get to know Adam better, but if I were to be asked at this early stage where I'm at with the word visionary, which I've used very sparsely and in a few limited situations because it's why I'm here, what I'm looking for, I'd have to say I'm not too far off from thinking that could be applied to Carbon Labs. Certainly it seems like it can apply to Adam himself, but with Carbon Labs, I think the designation and that status is not too far off. It'll be real interesting to see how that work with Zilhive pans out, how that moves forward. I'm super excited to see it. I'm sure you are as well. Take care, everybody. Until next time, I'm Chase Raz, and this is the Zilliqa Observer.